Hello and welcome to Mr. Excel 101. In this video I'm going to start talking about data presentation and how to create a graph from a dataset. So the first thing you'll need is a dataset. So you can see here I've got a table of information. So I've got my name, my nearest city, my two test scores and the total sum of those test scores. So if I want to make a chart from this data, the easiest thing I can do is just highlight anywhere within this table and go to the Insert ribbon and click Recommended Charts. Excel will then try and dissect what information you want to present and offer you a handful of charts which may or may not be very relevant. So you can see here it's trying to pull in as much of the data as possible and it's giving us a combination chart. So if I click cancel on that, one of the other ways of doing this is to actually select the data that you're interested in. So if I select the name and my two test scores, and I can go to a recommended chart again, or if I've got a specific chart type in mind, I could use one of these icons. So if I go to recommended charts and click all charts, then along this list I've got an option of quite a lot of the kind of key Excel charts on offer, and I know that for my example I want to use a clustered column. So I've got again two ways of doing this, if I wanted to do score on the x-axis or name on the x-axis. So if I put name on the x-axis, then you can see here I've got quite a busy chart, but I've got my names and the score that they achieved on test 1 and test 2, and I can quite easily see how they compared on the two. Simple chart formatting, so in the top here I've got a few different options, so for just the different colours, different backgrounds and layouts. You can also add chart elements, so for example if I wanted to add some axes in, maybe some data labels, so you can see here that's going to be quite a lot. And also I can adjust the layout, so if I want to get rid of certain features or add certain features or change the widths. So you can see here I've got some options. So the next thing you can do is, so if I highlight the x-axis as an example, then right click, I can format the axis, I can add major grid lines in, minor grid lines, and if I go into format then I can modify the axis. So usually you can see here, so axis position, I can change that to be between tick marks or on tick marks. I can change what my tick marks are, add in, for example, major tick marks, any labels I want, numbers, and that's just within this chart axis options. You can also change the fill and the line. So for example, if I want to make that x-axis black, let's make that nice and fixed so you can see it. And likewise, I could do exactly the same on the y-axis. You could also change your bounds, so for example you can see here we're going to 90 as an automatic standpoint. I could put it as 60 and just focus in on the lower level data, or alternatively could do the inverse of that and get rid of the lower level data so I can see the greater discrepancy between the high and low values. So that's for a clustered chart column. If you right click on that you can change the chart type, so if you actually wanted to go by score instead, or perhaps have a bar chart, then it's very quickly possible to add that in. The other main way of creating a chart is actually just go to Insert and click on a chart. So for example, if I want a scatter chart, I can just click on my scatter chart and you can see here it comes out as blank. And then within this I could select my data. So within data range I could again select my table, and that will give me points, but not necessarily the data that I'm interested in. So if I remove that as an example and add in a legend, then I could pull out, for example, Birmingham, just have the one cell there as a name, select all my x-axes for Birmingham, all my y-axes, points, and add those in. And then if I do exactly the same for Cambridge, so click on the drop down, click OK to that. So apologies, the colour is a little bit weak, but you can see here, so I've got my test 1 score along the x-axis and my test 2 score along the y-axis, and you can see here I've got my scatter points for the two. If I right click on that, I could add a trend line, such as so, or I could even add in data labels. And that trend line actually I can then format within that, so if I wanted it to perhaps be a moving trend line, moving average for example, or just a linear relationship between all of my points selected. That concludes this video on data presentation. In the next video we'll start looking at data analysis of those graphs.